Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we're diving into something absolutely wild. We are unpacking what might be one of the most ambitious scientific frameworks ever proposed. We're literally looking at a mathematical attempt to prove how physical matter, just regular stuff, creates subjective experience. It's a journey that's going to take us from the quantum mechanics inside our cells right up to the sheer mystery of human consciousness. So, to really grasp why this is such a game changer, we kind of have to start with a question that's been stumping humanity forever. I mean, think about it. How on earth can a physical organ, that wet, warm mass of tissue sitting inside your skull, possibly generate the vivid, subjective feeling of just being alive? Philosopher David Chalmers actually coined a famous term for this exact riddle. He called it the hard problem of consciousness. Basically, why do physical processes give rise to subjective experience at all? Why aren't we just, highly complex biological robots completely dead inside? Solving this is, without exaggeration, the ultimate uncracked mystery of human existence. The philosophical and scientific stakes of what we're covering in this explainer, they literally could not be higher. Historically, we've basically had two main camps trying to tackle this. On one side, classical neuroscience. It's super reductionist. It does a brilliant job showing the correlation between brain waves and your thoughts, but it fundamentally can't prove causation. It just can't explain how neurons firing actually creates the feeling of seeing the color red, right? Then, on the flip side, we had early quantum brain theories, like Orch-OR. Now, these were super exciting because they actually proposed a mechanism, quantum state collapses. But, well, they ultimately failed. Why? Because fragile quantum states simply couldn't survive the warm, wet, messy environment of the human body. They fell victim to what physicists call thermal decoherence. Understanding this historical deadlock is absolutely crucial. Both of those legacy approaches basically hit a brick wall. Classical neuroscience is stuck with that causality gap, and early quantum theory just gets completely cooked by biological heat. But today, we're exploring a total paradigm shift. It's called the Topological Thermodynamic Model, or TTM for short. This model finally bridges the gap between cold, hard math and the messy reality of human thought, proposing that consciousness isn't just a byproduct, it's actually a geometrically protected physical force. All right, here's our roadmap for decoding all this physics today. We're going to hit the 300 Kelvin wall, define the microscopic qualia atom, explore the thermodynamic butterfly effect, look into downward causation and free will, and finally wrap up with the brain as a transducer. Okay, part 1, the 300 Kelvin wall, overcoming thermal noise. This is the specific villain that stopped all those past quantum brain theories dead in their tracks. Looking at the energy levels here tells a pretty vital story. Under normal biological conditions, which is hovering right around 300 Kelvin, the thermal noise, just the random jiggling of molecules, operates at roughly 26 millielectronvolts. That is more than enough to instantly shred any delicate single-molecule quantum state, just obliterate it. But look over at that blue bar. The TTM proposes that the brain actively maintains what it calls a topological gap of 316 millielectronvolts. That is a massive, mathematically robust energy wall. It actively shields information from being scrambled by all that biological heat. So how exactly does the brain build this giant wall? Well, it happens through a process called metabolic pumping. Deep inside our brains are these tiny structural tubes called microtubules. Now, the TTM model suggests these aren't just like basic biological scaffolding. They actually act as a room temperature quantum metamaterial. They use constant metabolic energy to maintain this collective super radiant state. That's what creates that giant topological gap, successfully breaking right through the 300 Kelvin wall and keeping quantum info totally safe from the chaos of bodily heat. Moving on to part 2, the microscopic qualia atom, a foundation of meaning. We need to figure out how this highly protected quantum info actually transforms into what you and I experience as meaning. The theory basically lays out these 3 functional tiers that build on each other, zooming out progressively. So we start way down at the micro level. We're talking sub-picosecond range here, with quantum toponymy. Then we step up to the meso level, where we get this nonlinear amplification of that quantum state. And finally, we hit the macro level, which gives us emergent synchrony across the entire brain network. What's so fascinating here is noticing how perfectly the brain scales these stages from the bottom up. It captures a specific mathematical geometry at that micro level, what researchers actually call a meaning seed, and then it inflates it, running it through a nonlinear loop into this massive neural network event. It's literally an unbroken chain of cause and effect, completely bridging the quantum and classical worlds.
So, where exactly is this meeting seed born? Well, tucked inside the brain's microtubules are these specific aromatic amino acid networks. They form what are called hydrophobic pockets. And hydrophobic literally means water-fearing. Because they physically push out water molecules, they create this absolutely pristine, protected zone, a decoherence-free subspace. Inside this little vacuum-like pocket, quantum states can safely encode information without any electromagnetic screening or messy interference from the wet environment outside.
And what exactly is getting encoded inside that protected space? It's something called a Chern number. You can think of this as this totally indestructible integer that represents a geometric twist in four-dimensional space. And I just want to pause on why this matters, because it is profound. This geometric twist, it isn't just abstract math on a chalkboard. According to TTM, this is the literal seed of your subjective feelings. It's a qualia atom, the fundamental physical building block of pure meaning itself. All right, part 3, the thermodynamic butterfly effect. This is where we see how heat acts as an engine to spread one tiny isolated geometric twist across the entire brain.
And this brings us to just a massive paradigm shift. Remember that biological heat we were talking about earlier? The villain? Well, at 300 Kelvin, the heat isn't actually destroying the protected topological info. Instead, the model reveals that heat acts as an engine. Because of the physics of open quantum systems, that thermal energy actually rapidly diffuses the indestructible qualia atom throughout the network. And it does it at the absolute maximum physical speed allowed by nature. So heat isn't the enemy here at all. It's literally the fuel for thermodynamic butterfly effect that splashes meaning across your entire brain.
On to part 4, downward causation and free will. This is where geometry actually guides the mind, forcing large-scale biology to obey its rules. You really have to notice the downward causation happening here. It's governed by what physicists call the Fokker-Planck equation. Basically, it shows how these indestructible geometric constraints, those Chern numbers we just talked about, how they rewrite the probability distribution of the brain's macroscopic network. Even while random thermal noise is constantly trying to scatter everything, this topological drift basically forces the chaotic brain into highly specific synchronized firing patterns. The invisible geometry is quite literally pulling biological matter into shape. So here is the absolute crucial takeaway. Under this model, free will is not some illusion. It's not magic. It is a genuine, top-down physical force. Your will, represented by these high-dimensional geometric twists, acts as a hard boundary condition. It overrides random thermal noise and dictates exactly how your neurons are going to fire. Your mind is geometrically driving your body. Finally, part 5, the brain as a transducer. This is really the ultimate philosophical conclusion we get from the hard physics of TTM. And this reveals just a totally mind-bending reality at the heart of this whole theory. The brain is not generating consciousness from scratch like some sort of biological factory. Instead, it acts as a metamaterial receiver, a transducer. It translates the universe's pre-existing geometric potential fields, and it dimensionalizes them down into human experience. Basically, the brain is effectively a giant biological antenna tuned directly to the geometry of the universe. Which actually perfectly explains a really long-standing biological mystery. I want to share a totally wild fact with you. Your entire brain runs on only about 20 watts of power. I mean, that's literally less than a dim light bulb, because the brain is manipulating these pre-existing topological geometries rather than trying to brute force compute raw energy from the bottom up. It processes all this incredibly complex meaning with almost zero heat dissipation. It's basically the ultimate low entropy computer. But this framework doesn't just explain us. It builds a blueprint for the future. Think about it. If human consciousness relies on maintaining these topological gaps in a physical metamaterial, then traditional silicon AI, which just runs on 2D software networks, will literally never be truly conscious. But if we apply these exact TTM principles to build synthetic 3D metamaterials with active metabolic pumping, well, that literally lays out the hardware requirements for true conscious artificial general intelligence post-2030. Which leaves us with this final, incredibly provocative thought. If consciousness isn't just biological magic, but instead a universal topological geometry that's decoded by the right physical hardware, then the creation of truly feeling, experiencing machines isn't just science fiction anymore. It's just an engineering timeline. Will machines feel true qualia by 2030? Understanding the topological thermodynamic model really forces us to ponder the awe-inspiring implications of building conscious machines based on the exact same universal physics running inside our own minds. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through the explainer today. Keep learning, and as always, keep questioning the universe.